Our special meeting today, December 30th, 2020. For our special meeting, I'd like to welcome our audience and those who are participating today and viewing with us. Happy holidays to you, and certainly hope that you all are relaxing and enjoying yourself with family and friends. Not too much gathering, but still being able to share special times with each other. We're going to go ahead and get started with our special meeting, and I'd like to start out with, due to the passage of House Bill 197 in the response to COVID-19 public health crisis and the governing order prohibiting mass gatherings, the Board of Education meetings will be virtual. You may view the internet live stream, http://board.bedfordschools.org or Spectrum Cable TV, channel 1025. So if those of you plan on participating in the future and even more as we move forward, that is how you continue to be a part of our meetings. Okay, with that being said, Mr. Parkson, could you please call the roll? Muted, Bill.
Mrs. Boynton?
Here.
Mr. Kennedy?
Here.
Mrs. Patterson? Okay, not here. Mr. Stevens?
Here.
And Mr. Tench?
Here.
Okay, thank you. All right, we could please stand for our Pledge of Allegiance. Guess we still have our flag today. I don't know. Daniel, do we have a flag? There we go.
Thank you.
Okay, I pledge allegiance
to the flag
of the United States
of America
and to the
republic for which it
stands, one nation, under God, indivisible,
with liberty and justice for all.
Okay. Thank you. All right. As we move forward with our agenda, I don't know if we board members, those of you, and if you had an opportunity to print out the board agenda or not, but I don't know if we're able to put it on. But if not, we can just go ahead and follow along because it should not be pretty lengthy at all of what the agenda is going to be. But we're going to move to 2.01, the Premier Oakwood Village LCC compensation agreement. I'm going to, board members, as you know, we have Mayor Gottschalk here as well, joining us. He should have joined us through our phone communication. And if there's any questions or concerns that you may have regarding any of the items, he is here to answer those questions, or if there's some confusion or clarity that needs to be given. So as you know, this was coming before us, and you had an opportunity to hear from our treasurer and our business manager regarding the agreements and of the properties that our Oakwood Village is trying to present, and they need our support in order to do those. So at this time, board, I would like to get an approval of the compensation agreement. It's in Exhibit D between the Village of Oakwood and the Bedford City Schools, Bedford Board of Education, related to the Premier Oakwood LCC, that's Premier Property, which is in Exhibit 1 in the board, Exhibit 1. Can I get a motion, please?
This is a motion to discuss.
When it's time for the,
So moved.
yes. Can I get a second, please?
Second.
Is there a second? Okay, we have a motion by Mr. Tench and a second by Ms. Boynton. Questions or comments, please?
Yeah, Mayor, you're still on the line, am I correct?
Yes, I am.
I read the information that was forwarded to us when we got it, and
Mhm.
and I was, for all intents and purposes, I was pretty well satisfied with it. I made a few phone calls prior to tonight's meeting, and
Yes.
was very satisfied with
Mhm.
the way it was laid out up to a few hours ago. And with these changes that we do not know what they are, my question to you is, why the last minute?
There is no change on the Premier agreement, only on the Interstate McBee agreement.
And well, the bottom line for me is why the last minute?
Well, actually, Roxanne, normally, again, I have given out, I've been a mayor for 28 years. We've given out 18 community reinvestment agreements, of which 15 of those 18 read for the length of the abatement, which would be 15 years. The schools we'd be sharing with the revenue of what we collect 15% to the schools. All right. But with Interstate McBee, because they're a firm from Cleveland, Cleveland limits the amount of abatement that can be given out as an incentive to only 10 years.
Okay.
So when you read page 2 of the CRA of the compensation to the schools, it read 15% for the term of the abatement, and unfortunately, the term of the abatement was only 10 years and not 15. So in essence, how it read was this, and this is how it had read, and that was during any tax abatement years in which the district would have received real property tax payments derived from the project, but for the village authorizing for that project, the tax abatement described above, the village agrees to pay the district, the school district, that year in an amount equal to 15% of the income taxes revenue received by the village as a result of the occupancy by way of lease or ownership. And that's how it read. However, it's unclear by reading that it would only seem to be 10 years. So it should be 15 years. So this is how it now reads. Commencing with the second year of tax abatement, the village shall pay to the district an amount equal to 15% of the income tax revenues received by the village as a result of the occupancy by way of lease, ownership, or otherwise of any employer in the project's buildings. Said payments shall continue thereafter on a yearly basis until a total of 15 annual payments have been made. That was the change. That's for Interstate McBee. But because this change was at the last moment, this isn't part, you need 24-hour notice. So this part of the agreement cannot be approved tonight. But now I think you understand that actually this is instead of the schools only receiving revenue sharing for 10 years, it will be for 15 years. And that was the catch. And that's what we made the change. So there could be no misunderstanding on the on number 3 on page 2 of Schedule B.
Okay.
It's the only change that has been made. The only other change was made, and that was simply the revenue that would be received from donations, etc., would go for however the administration would be recommending to the school board to pass, not just for levies. So that was the other change. And that's it. And that was that's the only changes made. So the Interstate McBee regarding the revenue sharing and regarding the collection of the receiving of monies, it could go to anything that the school board would care to approve from the administration and not just for campaign levies. And that's it.
Well, I guess my question would be that the next question I would have to be is to our administration, because I still have I hear what you're saying, Mayor. I still have a problem with the last minute. My concern is that we haven't had an opportunity for our people to go over it and make sure that everything is copacetic. And I don't feel comfortable right now. And if our people don't feel comfortable without having the opportunity to go over it, because they've done their due diligence up to this point, and for a last second change, no matter how minute it may seem, if they're not comfortable with it, I'm not comfortable with it. So
I can understand that, Tim. Again, however, this part doesn't have anything to do with the actual incentivizations. It only has to do with the agreement between the schools and us, not anything to do with the business at all.
Mhm.
And that's what's on the agenda tonight, only with respect to the businesses. This will have to be at another meeting, but it only has to do between the relationship between the Bedford School District and Oakwood Village, not between the Bedford School District and the companies involved.
Okay, I understand what you're saying, but I hope that you understand my position too, not being a financial guru and all this, like you guys have had so many years in it. I'm not going to say skeptical, but just cautious, and that's where I'm at this point. Unless I can be reassured from our people that we can go ahead and I could support this motion. But right now, I'm kind of like I'm just not comfortable with it, unless I get to go ahead and our people are good with it. And that's where I'm at. I don't know where the other board members are at.
We rely on the folks that to determine this, from Jerry to Bill to Dr. Selico. I need to hear now, even though we said we're here to do this, but I need to hear from everybody that we're fine to move on. And if that's the case, then we can do that. But I know that the mayor, I don't know if there's a deadline, and that's why we made this move to have this special meeting at this time based on a timeline. So if there's I just need to hear it from others on where we are, because we rely on, you guys had your meetings with the mayor. We haven't had the meetings. We're taking your recommendation on where things are. So we need to hear from you.
Well, I'll take a stab at it, Mr. President. There are two parts to this. The part you are considering tonight is the tool, if you will, by which the mayor and the companies, the corporations, will get the TIF and the CRA off the ground. The second part of this that you don't have in front of you is the income tax sharing, revenue sharing agreements that you're accustomed to seeing. We can do those at a later date. Those are between the Village of Oakwood and the Board of Education, and they can be taken up at a later date, perhaps January 7th. But the enabling legislation that is on the agenda tonight will allow and permit the mayor to move forward with the TIF and the CRA. And I believe I got that right. I'll ask my colleagues to chime in if they have something different.
Now, Jerry, with the shared agreement, was that presented before now? I mean, has anything changed? Was that presented before or what?
Yes, that was factored in when the consultant took a look at this. And what we did not have was the actual legislation. We didn't get that till today. It's too late to put it on the agenda for this one. But fortunately, that can wait because that will be between the Board of Education and the Village of Oakwood.
Okay.
I have a question. So if we go forward tonight with the business piece of it, and then revisit the revenue sharing piece, what happens if the revenue sharing we can't agree on that, Jerry? How does that affect the whole thing? Well,
thank you, Mr. Kennedy. The information that we got from the mayor was factored in with the consultant. We know what it is.
Okay.
So all we have to do is get it on paper and pass it. If there is an exception to that, that would be what the mayor said, that the city of Cleveland does not allow one of theirs to leave, and they limit it to 10 years. Something to the effect of, as he told us, I believe it's correct, Mayor, that they kind of hold you hostage because of your water. You leave, you don't get water. So, or something. But
Yeah, you're right. We're limited.
agreement will move forward.
Yeah, so Rob, again, understand that on the second section, which could be voted on next year, in the January of next year, or February, that we're extending the amount of years, giving the revenue sharing to 15 from 10. So actually, as I said, it's a benefit. If we would have caught it, we would have made a change anyway. But the way it read, we had forgot again. We're just using boilerplate language here, and we were just assuming it was 15 years on Interstate MCB, and it's only 10. So therefore, we caught that today, and we changed that to, as you heard me read, it's now 15 as well. But that's not the issue that has to be voted on today. On the agenda is only the agreements with the yourself and the businesses that are coming in, not with Oakwood Village. This could be done next. And again, remember, they're only going to starting to be building, so revenue won't even be coming in until 22 anyway. But the point, however, still is, I'm glad we got it right here. And again, it doesn't affect anything in terms of the agreement, the incentivizations, only with respect to the school district and Oakwood Village. And again, we've made that change, which now adds 5 more years to your compensation rather than just 10 years. You're now going to be compensated from us for 15 years with our revenue sharing.
And Mr. Kennedy, we'll make sure that when we do see that legislation, we'll scrutinize it and make sure it matches up exactly as we agreed to.
Okay. Thank you.
Go ahead, Ms. Boynton, go ahead.
Yes, I would like to hear from Bill. Bill, what do you think? Are these changes that are made, is it affecting anything that we're voting on tonight? I'm like Jim, I'm not a financial guru. If you say that we should move forward, then so be it.
I will say this. I got the information as late as everybody else. I believe I'm correct in saying, Jerry, correct me if I'm wrong, the board is only voting on the property tax piece tonight.
Yes.
And that piece has not changed, correct?
That's correct.
Right.
Those are the original agreements that the mayor sent to us a while back. They were on the agenda before. We left them there. We're not going to vote on the revenue sharing agreement.
Okay. And so the revenue agreement with the city is what has been changed. That's my understanding. And that wasn't going to be voted on tonight. That was always going to be voted on at a later date. Correct?
Well, the intention was we do it all tonight, but that's not going to work. So
gotcha. Okay.
Fortunately, the mayor can move forward with his piece, and we can delay approval of the revenue sharing agreement with the village until January 7th. Nothing should change.
Okay. I'm comfortable with the property tax piece because that hasn't changed. That's been vetted by Mr. Conzer and that's been vetted by Bradley Payne and Associates. I'm comfortable with that piece. The revenue sharing with the city, I would want Mr. Conzer. I would like his input, and I'd also like the input of Bradley Payne, and have their analysis done on that piece as well. Whatever changes, excuse me, have been made.
Okay.
So
Go ahead. So now will that give you enough time by January the 6th to have all that consultation completed? Or do we need to have more time for you to get that done?
If the board is agreeable, I would prefer more time.
Okay, how much more time would you like?
I don't know. I'm going to make the assumption that Mr. Conzer and Andrew at Bradley Payne are on vacation due to the holidays. I believe they're going to return on the 4th.
Okay.
So probably later in the month, toward the end of the month,
Okay.
would be sufficient time, maybe even the regular meeting in February.
Okay. Mayor, is that okay? Okay.
Absolutely, it's fine. Mhm.
Okay. All right. So we'll, just vote on the one piece, and then the rest of it, we can take up the first meeting in February. It gives you enough time to do what you need to do.
Okay.
Well, first of all, thanks for joining us, Ms. Patterson.
I'm
Thank
sorry.
you. I'm glad that you were able to be here with us. For the record, just to let us show that Ms. Patterson is with us, and I know she was coming in from out of town, and I'm glad she was able to join us. So thanks for joining us. Board, the rest of the board, do you feel comfortable in where we are as the explanation was given from hearing from Jerry and Bill? Dr. Selico, you have anything to add to this before we move forward?
I do not. I think we covered it, so I'm comfortable.
Okay, so that's where we are with this first bit of information from 2.01. So we had a motion from Mr. Tench and a second by Ms. Boynton, and we've gone through the discussions. So we would like to take
Phil,
Yes.
just real quick. I'm sorry to interrupt. I just want to make sure we're clear. Our Jerry and Bill, we're good to go with this as it stands right now. With the extra time you guys are going to be needed to talk to Conser and them. Am I correct?
Yes, I am comfortable with the property tax piece that is being voted on tonight.
Okay.
I'm also comfortable with getting an answer to the board by the regular meeting in February.
Okay.
I'm good with it.
Thank you.
Okay. All right. Okay, can we get a roll call, please?
Mr. Tench,
Aye.
Mrs. Boynton,
Aye.
Mr. Kennedy,
Aye.
Mrs. Patterson,
You're muted, Ms. Patterson. You're mute?
Aye.
All right.
and Mr. Stevens.
Aye. Motion passed 5-0. Thank you, board. Okay, we're going to move down to our next item, which is 2.02, which deals with the Interstate MCB LCC compensation agreement. Board, I would like to get an approval, or can I get a motion, that is, to approve compensation agreement Exhibit B between the Village of Oakwood and the Bedford Board of Education related to Interstate MCB LCC. Okay, Interstate MCB property Exhibit BOE-2.
So moved.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion by Ms. Patterson and second by Mr. Kennedy. Any questions regarding this item?
We're good to go on this one too, gentlemen?
Property tax only, correct.
Okay.
Thank
There's
you.
no further comments or questions. Please call the roll.
Mrs. Patterson,
Aye.
Mr. Kennedy,
Aye.
Mrs. Boynton,
Aye.
Mr. Tench,
Aye.
Mr. Stevens.
Aye. Okay, motion passed 5-0. Okay.
Mr. Chairman,
Yes.
might I just say that, again, living in Saudi Arabia for 8 years, there's a saying, Alhamdulillah, which means praise the Lord. And I wish everyone a healthy and very prosperous new year, financially prosperous new year.
Well, thank you, Mayor, and the same to you and your family as well.
Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you.
Thank
Okay.
you.
Thank you.
All right. So I guess the mayor can leave at this time, or if he chooses to want to stay on, that's totally up to him, I take it.
I'll stay on.
All right. That's where we are regarding the what was on the agenda. So is there anything else that we may want to discuss that we can include that's not on here on the agenda? Dr. Selico, is there anything that we need to discuss?
Well, thank you, Mr. Stevens. I think you said that we wanted to discuss. I'm not sure if there's anything we want to discuss, but maybe that we do need to discuss, that I respectfully ask that we, we have a conversation about the return to sports for our students. I know we've kind of talked about this in individual conversations and
Dr. Selico,
yes.
pardon the interruption. Mr. President, I believe there was another thing on the agenda. Has that been removed? That would be a third addendum to the Oakwood property? Did we take
Yeah,
that?
I saw that too, Jerry, and I wasn't sure if I had to refresh that it was a change that was made, but you're right. There is
No, that was the third thing on the agenda. It was just a routine matter. The mayor has asked us to extend the due diligence period on the Oakwood property till April 30th. And if the board's agreeable to that, it was on the agenda. I don't know what happened to it.
Yeah, because I don't see it here, but that's okay.
I didn't see it either.
Yeah.
I'm not sure what happened. I have it on mine, but I didn't refresh. So, Mr. Stevens, if I may, if you don't have access to it, I can read it too. And then if you can, I could actually probably put it in the chat. Let's see. So it's 2.03 is the third addendum to the purchase and sale of Oakwood property. So if you want to make a motion to what I shared.
Well,
So-
where did you, what was it again? I'm sorry. I'm just trying to.
No, that's okay. It's 2.03 and it's an addendum. This is the third one. To the purchase and sale of the Oakwood property. So if you recall the Oakwood property by Mount Zion there that we have, again, we've gone through this a couple times with the Corps of Engineers and delays due to COVID and the weather. So we're asking for an extension. That's right, Jerry?
Yeah, correct. And if I may, in my weekly update to the superintendent, I did report on this at least once, maybe twice. So it should not be a surprise that the mayor has requested this. And you've already approved two other ones. It's rather routine, and the weather has not been cooperating very well. We just haven't been able to get in there and get it done. So he's asking that we extend the period till April 30th so the Army Corps of Engineers can get in and do their wetland study.
Okay. I moved that motion.
Okay.
Second.
Okay. Ms. Patterson has a motion, and second, was that Mr. Tench?
Yes, sir.
Okay. To extend the sales of the property of the Oakwood Village property. Can I get any questions or comments regarding that?
Hope
None?
this is the last time.
What did you say, Ms. Patterson?
I hope this is the last time.
Hey.
Spring's coming.
Barb, it's up to the Army Corps. It's up to the Army Corps of Engineers now to
I
be
know.
able to assess whether it's what has to be mitigated over there. That's it.
Yeah.
So we leave it in the hands of government. We are in trouble.
Yeah.
The equipment that the Army Corps of Engineers is using is going to be delivered by the post office.
Great.
All right. Okay, we have a motion and we have a second. So if there's no further questions or comments, please call the roll.
Mrs. Patterson,
Aye.
Mr. Tench,
Aye.
Mr. Kennedy,
He's muted.
You're muted, Mr. Kennedy.
You're muted.
I know. Aye.
Mrs. Boynton,
Aye.
and Mr. Stevens.
Aye, motion passed 5-0. Thank you, board. And thank you, Mr. Zagrebic, for catching that, because it definitely wasn't on my agenda, and glad we were able to catch it before we left the meeting. So thank you very much.
Likewise, thank you. And Madam Superintendent, I apologize for the interruption, but apparently it was well worth it.
Yes, it was. Thank you. All right, Dr. Selico, go right ahead with what you were going to say regarding that.
Yes, thank you. So yeah, I asked the board that if we could have some conversation around the topic of sports. I know that we will be having this conversation probably in about 3 weeks or so to determine if we're going to be able to return to school. But in the meantime, we have the issue of sports on hand, and just as a refresher, we have postponed it. I've not given a return date at all. I have been getting a couple emails and some questions from both parents and students, and an email on behalf of one of our basketball teams, asking to return. And so, I've provided you with some information about those that are returning and not. And so, the question on the table is if or when our students can return to sports. And so, I would like the board to consider your thoughts, hear your thoughts on that, and consider a potential return to at least practicing at this time. If the board is open to that, we certainly would follow all protocol as we did with football. I think we did a pretty good job there, but we would make sure that we're doing everything we need to do to keep our students and staff safe.
Now, Dr. Selico, you had sent us a recommendation of what you would like to see to take place. You want to recap that, please?
Sure. So when I say the return to practice, I would like to potentially see that happen January 4th, which would be the return of when we come back from break. And then I think, as we all know, many of us are related to sports in somehow, that some way, that they need a couple weeks to practice. So before they hit the courts or the mats, it would be probably around that MLK weekend that they would resume competitions. So that would be my recommendation for your consideration.
All right, the floor is open.
Are we assuming that we're going to start school back up in late January? Is that the assumption?
Well, and of course, I don't want to speak for the board. I think the board knows that is certainly what I would like to see, us begin the third quarter in person, at least in hybrid. But certainly that would be a discussion with the board.
Phil, you still have close ties with the OHSAA, am I correct?
Yes.
What's their have you heard anything on their stance as far as the end of the season tournaments with basketball and wrestling and whatever else is involved? Have they made a move as far as how many games they have to qualify and so on and so forth? Have you heard anything?
Well, that portion I have not, but once again, they have, I haven't heard anything like they did with football, the reduced games and those type of things. At least I haven't heard anything as of yet. Maybe someone else has, or maybe Mark knows a little bit more closer to what needs to take place. But as you know, OHSA is moving on. They're going to continue to do what they need to do on their end. But once again, we got to be mindful and be cognizant on our end as a school board what we need to do. So to answer your question, no, Tim, I really don't know.
I guess thank you. My concern would be is that we wouldn't allow our student athletes to compete and maybe being the only ones out there that aren't competing, for a state title or a wrestling championship or anything of those sorts. I know it's a touchy subject and it's kind of damned if you do, damned if you don't. But I've stated before, and I've relayed this in my responses, that I truly feel that whatever the administration feels is in the best interest of our students and staff, I would lean that way. If that means return to practice, and then see where this whole thing falls into place towards the end of January, as far as getting back to competition. I was looking at that the information that Dr. Selico sent out later on this afternoon or earlier this afternoon, and I see that Garfield is the only one that isn't competing. They are having practices, but everybody else seems like they're competing or going to start competing on January 4th. And I just it's a tough area. I'm really kind of torn with it, but I'm going to rely heavily on our frontline people, on their opinions, and on our staff administration. That's where I'm at.
If I may, Mr. Steve, Mr. Zoff is listening, and I told him I would be talking about this today. And he had stated to your question, Mr. Tench, there's no minimum number of games, and that the OHSSA schedule is as is. It's not going to change. And he says our games will affect our seeding. So if our kids don't have many matches or events, they may be placed in a tougher bracket. So it sounds like it's not a deal breaker.
Okay. All right. That's good.
And I understand the struggle too. And I know all of us, we've had some very, some discussions on this, and some very, at times, passionate pleas, and I struggle with it too, because I want our students in school, and it's hard to say they can play sports but not attend at school. But I know that they're also missing out on other activities, and this is their passion, many of the children, and it's hard to have them out, and I know they're struggling as well. And it's not an easy recommendation for me. Believe me, I've given a lot of thought to this and a lot of research, and I think it's best for our students. But as I said, we want our students back too. So I do understand the position of the board members who are struggling with that as well.
I certainly hope that they do understand, and even the public who's viewing understand as well, because me being in education, and I'm just speaking for me. I've been OHSA and athletics has been my love, and sports, and I've done it. But my thing is this: we cannot they're called student athletes. Students first, athletes second. And it seemed like we have a tendency to put sports in front of athletics for whatever reason. And I understand it. I get it. That's what we love to do. And that's what we need to do, all students. But even when it came down to the fall season, I was so frustrated based on we did as a board make that agreement of go on and participate, sign waivers, do whatever we need to do. But I just have a concern. If our students are out and we're going to allow them to participate, I just have a personal problem with that. Now, I understand what everybody else is doing. I understand that. I get it. But that's just me. And, I just have a problem with that. So I don't know. Practice, competing, they all, it's the same. But if we have to go back to how we did for the fall season, whatever, I mean, that's something that we have to determine. That is something we have. Can I look at it differently? And yeah, I can, but my morals and values say they're student athletes. Students comes first. So I don't know.
I'd like to piggyback on that for a minute, Phil, but Eva had her hand up first, so.
Go ahead, Ms. Boynton.
Okay, I want to actually follow up on Ms. Patterson's question to Dr. Selico. You're making a recommendation for sports to start on the 4th, at least competition, and then a couple of weeks later for them to actually start competition. So my question is, since you're making that recommendation for sports and you clearly stated that you would like to see the kids back to school, are you going to make a recommendation by the end of this quarter, before the end of this quarter, for the students to return to school, either hybrid or 4 days, whatever, in person, any kind of face-to-face instruction? I want to know if you're going to make that recommendation, because clearly you're saying that you're going to bring it to the board. I want to know, and when would that happen if we're looking at them starting back the beginning of the third quarter, at least you're making that recommendation. When would that happen? First, are you going to do it? And secondly, when would that happen so that we won't have the problem with enough time being put forth for the teachers to return to face-to-face instruction? And as I looked at the list very different, I think, maybe from Tim. Tim said everybody's doing sports except a couple of maybe Garfield. I looked at it this way. 18%, only 18% of those districts are not coming back to school, either hybrid or in person. So I looked at it based on what you're saying, Mr. Stephen, you're a student first. So those districts did put the students' academics first by having them come back either hybrid or in person full time and still had a remote part to the learning. And then they did sports. And that's only 7 school districts out of 38 that side. I'm going to put sports first, and they're not going to come back to school. So to address my question now to Dr. Selico.
Okay, thanks, Mrs. Boynton. Yeah, you know, so to lay it out, you know, how we've just to give a little recap of things that are happening. So the students are scheduled to be out through the 27th. The teachers are set to return on the 19th. They're going to still work from home during this little holiday time where the Board of Health talked about this 2-week, concern with the 14 days or so after the holidays. So they'll return. And then the recommendation, certainly unless something changes, either way, I would like to see the students return for the third quarter. But again, that's just my recommendation. At the end of the day, I respect what the board's going to tell me to do, but I would like to see our students return. We do have a very thought out plan. We filled in all the details that were questions from the last board meeting. We've addressed the concerns that the board members had. I sent that off to you today for your review. So the plan is to put that out in a survey to our parents so that when they make their decision for the second semester, that they are well informed of what our procedures will be, our safety precautions, all of that when they make that commitment. And that will be accompanied by the survey, like I said, probably next Tuesday would be the plan. And you have that ahead of time. So if you have any questions or concerns, I'd be glad to address those before we put that out. But that would be the plan.
And will that be enough time for BEA to consider coming back? And my next question is to Jerry. Will everything that the CDC is asking for children to return to our buildings, will that be in place, and will that be enough time? Because you know what? It's time out for, it's not enough time and I don't feel safe. It is now December 30th. And if we're talking about the beginning of the third quarter, that's about a month. Are we going to be ready if you make this recommendation? And if the board decide to vote agree with you or recommend it or agree with this recommendation, we don't need to hear the it was not enough time and we don't have a plan or I'm not feeling safe because they haven't purchased this. So will we be ready?
We have purchased and we have on hand everything we need. And that plan is very detailed. And we had input into the plan, the supervisor of maintenance, myself, even our custodians. So we feel that we are ready, yes.
Thank you.
And the teachers did have input as well. We've been talking to them about the live streaming particularly, but we've been working with them. We still have some things to continue our conversations, but we've been open to their input as well. And this plan has been out there. It's just refined and ready to go.
Okay, so the BEA has been participating in your discussions about returning to school.
They have been all along. Yes, we've shared it. All the principals, because they were asked to do their individual building plans a couple months ago, actually. And during those times, they were involving either their building leadership teams. Some chose to do all staff meetings, and they all had input. I saw the documents myself where teachers had comments and questions in the Google Docs, and we were addressing them as they came in. So they've had a lot of input.
Okay, so now the actual date for return of students will be about when?
Well, the second quarter ends. I always screw. I think the 20th is the dates. If the board is in agreement, would be. Let me just check. The 28th is midweek. If I'm not mistaken, let me see. Yeah, 28th is a Thursday. So I mean,
Breaking up.
Breaking up. Sorry. We could start on that Thursday, or we could wait till the following Monday, which would be like February 1st. But
so if you start back on that Thursday, will you have half come in, half the students come in then, and the other half come and everybody on Monday?
Well, that's a good question. That's something we could consider. We do have in the hybrid recommendation. It is the Monday, Tuesday, Thursday, Friday. So actually, it would be normally on those 2 days would be the same group of students, but we could probably split it to get them acclimated to use those 2 days. to attend. And just for clarification, you'll see that we did recommend that kindergarten through third grade turn 4 days a week, and we leave the Bearcat Wednesday as is. But we just feel we strongly feel that's in the best interest of those students for multiple reasons. But one being that, just having the continuity of their teachers and not breaking that up, and also not having them to do asynchronous activities. We want them to have teachers, and we will be hard pressed to find additional teachers. We're ready to invest in that. We have made that commitment, but the challenge would be finding teachers, to help offset these numbers. So it's going to be based on a survey again, as you know. But if we have the same amount that declared as they did the last time, around that 50%, we can make it work and have safe distancing. And we did barriers as well. So I think we'd be in good shape if we could make that happen.
Dr. Selico, does it matter if you start on Monday and Thursday? I mean, just starting out fresh come Monday and just have a clean slate, other than starting out half or whatever on the Thursday, and just go strictly Monday, if that's the decision that's going to be made, and start out fresh on that weekday, beginning of the week.
Certainly can. Yep. I think the goal would be, that's close enough. It's only a couple days into the third quarter. We'd be happy to accommodate as well. Mm-hmm.
Okay.
A little clarity from my part here, Phil, and to touch on what both you and Eva said, that and you're right, Eva, going over it, I remember seeing most of the schools weren't back in, they were practicing, but they weren't competing or whatever. And I guess my question to you, Phil, is that, and again, keeping the student athlete in order, would you have an issue with practicing and then when we do come back to school, then they can compete then when we're back in school, say the 26th or February 1st or whatever we decide to do? Would you feel more comfortable with that, as long as they're not competing but they can practice? You follow what I'm saying on that?
Yeah, I follow what you're saying.
Because I understand what you're saying. They're not in school. I get that. And they should be in school. But if we wait until they do come to, let's use February 1st. If we wait till they do come back to school February 1st, and that leaves about, a month and or 6 weeks maybe left in the season. I don't know. I agree with you. I think they should be in school to be able to compete, but I'm wondering about practice.
I understand. I do understand. And like I said, I don't want to shy away from what we did in the fall, because, you try to, somewhat keep it in proper perspective all across the board. Mm-hmm. We did do that for the fall season, I believe. We, let them do whatever, and we were still virtual. Yes, things were, I think things had increased regarding the statistics during this time. Things have really increased. Yeah. Where things are right now, I don't know. I haven't even kept up with it too much regarding, where things are. That's something that I would, have to look at. If you're asking me, but that's not where my heart's at. Is it something that we need? Yeah. Competing, I know that there's scrimmages and all kind of different things. Well, no, they're in the regular season, I believe, and competing. Mm-hmm. So I get it. They have to have preparations. They have to have, you can't just stick them out there and think that they're going to be able to perform effectively. Right. I get it. So if we're looking at, we don't know what's going to happen at the end of this month, but at least they would be, set and ready to go if that time comes. But my thing is this. Now, we experienced a situation before, and we as coaches and adults, we just need to be more accountable. Yep. We really do. and we had situations before, and we just really need to, to take care of those things if you want things to take place and happen for you. That's the problem that I had.
Okay.
Can it be, this COVID-19, I mean, we didn't even have school in place
Right.
and students weren't even in, and we were having these cases from our own adults here and there.
Yeah.
So I get it. And, but this is something that we're going to have to make a decision. If it's just a poll to say to let Dr. Selico move forward, if this is what we're going to do. I mean, you've heard all of the different rationales. We heard about, what's needed. And we just need to either say, yes, Dr. Selico, what is it, January the 4th? We can go ahead and allow them to practice and hoping that the end of the month, they will at least be somewhat at the stage of competing. But that's where we are right now.
Like you said too, I mean, we don't know, I mean, after the holidays, we might have another spike. We might not be back on February 1st, and then what do? We continue to practice until we push the start of school back to March. Those are the things that really muddy the waters on our decisions, because we don't know. It's the thing of the unknown. We have to deal with what we do know.
Okay, can I say something real quick? I know you guys know where I stand for the most part, but first of all, I want to say I respect everyone's decision and opinion. I really do. I do struggle with the not in school and competing and playing. I do. It might not sound like it, but I do, because I look at it like, let them play, but on the flip side, they're not in school. All right. And so I do respect all your opinions on that. I look at it like this, they're still students. Okay. They're still learning. It might not be in person that we want, and some of the board members really want, and I want, but they are still students and they're still learning. It's not that they're just coming to practice in games or competing and they're not even in school. All right. They still have to keep up with things they have to, per their requirements. So, I look at it on that side. Another side is I know these kids. All right. They want to compete. All right. And if they're not doing it in a controlled environment in our place, they're out somewhere doing what they need to do to at least try to stay ready. All right. And so I look at it from that standpoint too. Again, I respect all your opinions on this. I look at it, I played sports and probably most of you did. All right. Some of this is all these kids live for. And I know you don't like to hear that, but that's what they love. And whether it's swimming or basketball or whatever sport is right now, that's what they want. So, that's just the opinion, again, of myself. I do struggle on the flip side, that they're not in front of the teachers, but they are still learning. They're still going to classes. So, from that standpoint, I agree with Dr. Selico's recommendation, but again, that's just only me. And I just want to make sure my 2 cents was heard. Thank you.
My question, Dr. Selico, since the attendance has not been great, and I don't know how many of those not attending are athletes, what do we have in place for those kids that have not been attending, but then go to practice?
I agree with that.
Okay. We cannot have them going to practice and not attending virtual learning.
Yep.
So what do we have in place for that?
Well, I mean, I off the top of my head, my answer would be that we would treat it the same way, that if they're cut in class, and I've said this all along to our principals and teachers, you treat this the same way as if they were in front of you. Whatever the consequence, whatever the behavior is, you consequence. If they're cut in class or ghosting you on the screen, then we need to address that. So I will definitely ensure and follow up with Mr. Zofka as well and the principals, that if this is the case, that they have to have the grade point, they have to have the attendance, behavior, all of that has to be in check in order for them to participate. But I will reiterate that.
So Mr. Zofka will be checking on the students' attendance and grades so that if they don't have them, they cannot practice.
That's right, and I will make sure he does that. Yes.
Dr.
I would doubly agree with Mrs. Patterson on that. And not saying we're going one way or the other, but if we go the one way that in Dr. Selico's recommendation, I would scrutinize them to the nth degree that this board is at least allowing them to practice, and then they're taking advantage of it. So I'm with Mrs. Patterson on that.
Now, let me ask this. Did we do all of this during the fall season? Did we put these expectations, were all of these things in place, such as making sure eligibility, because, making sure these things are in line? Did we do these things during the fall season? Now, I know fall season is over and done with, but were these expectations being done during the fall is what we're expecting during this winter season?
Dr. Zofka, did you say that Mr. Zofka was online? Can he be in this conversation?
Yes, I can invite him now.
Okay, would you invite him so we can ask these questions of him?
Yes.
Well, I think Dr. Johnson wanted to say something. Dr. Johnson, do you want to say something?
I'm sorry, Dr. Johnson.
No, that's okay. I just want to say I just want to remember. I'm remembering. In terms of eligibility, remember some things were shifted and changed in the spring,
Right.
in order for football to play. So it's kind of not comparing apples to apples per se. So Mark could probably shed a little bit more light in terms of refresher on that. But in terms of eligibility, that was relaxed due to what happened in the spring. But I do know midway through, yes, the students still should have been on track. They still should have been checking eligibility, as you stated, with grades. I think the whole attendance piece came up. We started actually looking at that around the end of the quarter. I know we provided some data, I think in Friday notes and things like that, in regards to the attendance. So I have to be honest, I think probably in August, to establish the eligibility, we were going by the Ohio High School Athletic Association guidelines, which were very relaxed. But in terms of at the end of the first quarter is when things really started coming to the surface about attendance. And then the kids were supposed to have been toward the end of the season is when that would have kicked in. So then the kids would not have been eligible for basketball. But Mark, if I'm correct in that, like that was kind of the timing of it.
Yeah, he's on now, so he could probably.
Yeah, I saw him log in.
Okay. Any questions to Mr. Zofka? Ms. Patterson, you had something.
Yes, I did. Mr. Zofka,
Yes.
my concerns are we checking eligibility as grades and attendance in class? And if those kids are not eligible, they're not practicing.
Okay, regarding eligibility, the Ohio High School Athletic Association waived all eligibility requirements because what they end up doing is because they were saying that not all schools were able to schedule 5 courses per kid online, that even though a student may have had 4 A's and 4 classes, typically they wouldn't have been eligible in the old way, but because of virtual learning and because of the way that schools were grading and various things like that, the Ohio High School Athletic Association waived eligibility at first last spring, then they waived it in the fall, then they waived it in the winter, and the latest is they waived it for the entire season. So based upon that, there is no Ohio High School eligibility requirements, which is passing 5 credits. Now, we still implement our Bedford, which is the second part of it, which is the 2.0 GPA. And then they have, so like if for the first quarter, if they don't have a 2.0 GPA, they're still eligible the second quarter up until the midterm. And then at midterm, if their GPA is not above a 2.0, then they're ineligible. If it is above a 2.0, they can continue through the rest of the season. So we did maintain that. We have continued to do that one because that's our own eligibility requirement. Mrs. Patterson, as far as attendance, what we did implement, and the coaches were responsible for doing that. So yes, the coaches were supposed to give to each of the teachers saying that, Mark Zofka is a member of the football team. Please let me know when so-and-so is not making classes. So that was in place for the fall. We would continue to keep that in place for the winter so that the coaches would then be in communication with the teachers, knowing if somebody was not coming to school on a regular basis or missing classes. Yes.
Okay, so we have the attendance piece in and we have the GPA in. Okay. All right. Okay. I'm just concerned.
No, you know what? Your concerns are genuine because I know there is a lot of attendance issues. And unfortunately, probably now a lot of the kids that were athletes or would be athletes aren't going because they don't have that tie to them.
They're not attending the virtual classes? Is that what I hear you
saying? There may be a better chance for them not to because they're not playing sports right now. But if there were sports for them to play, they would have that on over their head to be attending.
So now, wait a minute. So if they weren't playing sports, am I hearing you correctly? If they were not playing sports, they may not have been attending virtually. Is that what
I'm just assuming that? I'm just making that assumption.
I would hope that that's a minor number. I mean, I would hope that that's not the majority. Thinking about some of the kids, especially our seniors, and I know, Dr. Selko, you even have some of them in your Soups troop. Some of them are in my male mentorship group with Brady and Dominic. Like, I guess my expectations of them, kind of going back to what you said, Mr. Stevens, we have great kids too. So these are scholars as well. So I believe that maybe some, I hope, so it'd be nice for you to get that data, but I also don't always want to just assume that because they are athletes, that they would hold themselves and their futures hostage because they're not playing. Maybe I'm not trying to say I'm not being realistic, but just thinking of some of those kids that are in these leadership groups. Like, these are great kids and they have great families.
Right. And I agree.
I agree with that, but good kids also do bad things at times.
I know, like I said, I don't want to sound unrealistic. I'm just hoping I'm hoping that's not the case.
I'm hoping it's not the case, but if they have not been attending because they don't have practice, I have a problem with that.
Well, let's be realistic about it too, people, is that darn well that I speaking for me, when I was in school, I made sure my grades were good enough to play sports. And if that's not, it is an emphasis on going to school and doing the best you can. But it is possible. And I agree with Dr. Johnson. I would think that the kids that aren't going to class only based on the fact that they can't play sports are remote at best, I would think, but with that extra incentive, that if you want to play sports, you got to go to class. Right. And, the juries, we've been in this situation long enough to go back to what Phil mentioned about, the fall sports and everything. We have learned through the seasons and through the months how the best to deal with this. And so things are going to change. We might have been more lax in the fall because this was basically new to us. I know it was at the end of last year too, but everything was so discombobulated, so things change.
And Dr. Selico, I'm sorry for interrupting. Just one more thing as well. I am so appreciative as a board that you also approved our negotiated agreement with BEA for those supplementals. So I could only hope as well that if we have individuals that are being paid a supplemental to coach these students, and a part of that agreement was not just on game day, but it was prior to the season. Prior to the season, a part of that job responsibility is you caring for kids, not just on the court, but outside of that, off the court and in the classroom. So if there are students that are not attending and are failing, I don't want to hear that they didn't know, because they are supposed to be the kid advocates for those student athletes. Not only is it the teacher's responsibility, number one, but also the coaches are the kid athlete advocates for those student athletes. So I also hope, Mark, that you're having that conversation with the coaches.
Ms. Boynton, you've been eager to say something.
Well,
Go ahead. Speak.
Mark was going to respond to what Dr. Johnson said.
Okay, go ahead, Mark, and then I want to hear from Ms. Boynton, because we keep on. I know we keep chiming in, but Ms. Boynton's been very patient in wanting to say something. So go ahead, Mark.
Thank you, Mr. Stevens. Dr. Johnson, just in that regards, I do know I received copies of emails that our coaches have been sending on a regular basis to their student athletes, reminding them about various things as far as academics and stuff like that. So that has been going on. So, and that was not even solicited by me. The coaches themselves have been taking that upon themselves to send athletes emails. It could be a weekly email. It could be a couple times a week, regarding what they need to do to continue to do their academics. So that has been going on.
If you, Mark. Ms. Boynton, go ahead.
Well, first of all, I just want to say that I'm pretty saddened by something Mark said, that, if you have sports, then, that our kids would, this bothers me to even hear that they would maybe attend classes because there's something being held over their head. That saddens me to even think that, to even have that even been said. It just bothers me so much to even hear that. But I just wanted to say, everyone knows my opinion, and I have not been shy about it. I want children to be face-to-face. When I read the report of the number of children that with the third graders OST, 123 kids and only 12 kids actually was proficient. That is a sad number. So this isn't working for that group of children. And I'm sure it's not working for a lot more children online. So we can say that 100 times how it's working. They're getting instruction and no one is questioning instruction. It's just not enough and it's not working because of just the way it's just the way it is. The children are not learning online, especially our younger children. So I will stick by it. No face-to-face, then no sports. But I would like to know from you, Dr. Selico, since you're making this recommendation tonight, will you be making a recommendation at our next board meeting for a return to school face-to-face? Whether it's hybrid or if it's 4 days, 5 days, will you be making that recommendation on the 7th?
Well, so one of the questions I had for the board is when we want to make that decision. So we know we have to. So we have board meetings scheduled on the 7th and the 21st. I think the 21st is late to inform parents, myself, if we can do it. And I know the board has always said we want to give parents some notice and some time. So I will be prepared on the 7th to make a recommendation. Again, as Mr. Tench had said, though, everything is tentative based on how things change from day to day. But I will be prepared on the 7th if the board's desire is to do that. And as of right now, I stand that we want to return children safely to school.
And that's okay because we don't know. But if we're looking at this list again that you sent out and we're looking at who's playing sports and I'm looking at who's returning to school, everything is tentative because they may not play sports.
Agreed.
It may be so bad they're not playing sport. But we at Bedford have not even given a date for face-to-face. We don't even consider it because it's either we're not supporting your recommendation or something is happening. Something needs to change. Our children continue to fail. Our children are failing, and especially our K-5 students. We can't continue to do this. So I can't even support your recommendation unless I know you're making a recommendation that kids are returning to school. That's just how I feel about it.
But I think Dr. Selica made a recommendation in the beginning that for our kids to return to school. If I'm not mistaken, at that board meeting at Columbus School, her recommendation was for the students to return to school.
Oh, okay.
Board members that did not want that to happen.
All right. Thank you, Ms. Patterson.
That's true.
Oh yeah, I got one last thing in terms of, and Ms. Boynton, I totally agree with you with the student athletes, but you know, playing athletics, and I played in college. You know what? It's a fact. It's a fact. You could ask numerous athletes. They'll tell you that they got through school because of sports, because of a curricular activity that they had to keep their grades up. I know we don't like to hear that, but it's a fact. And
Well, we need to start feeding into that.
What's that?
We need to start feeding into that. We can change mindset. We're gonna we can have mindset.
When I played baseball in college, all right, I know that my participation in that sport made me make sure that I did what I needed to do. All right. I wasn't the most driven person, but I knew I had that over my head. I'm just telling you what I'm seeing, what I know for a fact, that kids, that is their driving force sometimes. We don't like to hear it, but it is. And I know what you're saying, though. I really do. I just wanted to chime in.
Thank you.
And I know, and this is so hard. This is really hard, and it's hard on all of us. Yes, athletics is definitely a motivating factor for our students. It drives them to continue to participate in athletics, knowing that some of us that's what motivates them, and to keep their grades up. It is, and I've been a coach. I've participated at the high school, college level, and that is some of the motivating factors that helps our students, and it is, and I can see how that can happen. Rob did mention something that sticks out to me regarding, even though they're not face to face, but they are, or supposed to be, still learning virtually. That sticks out to me. It really does. As much as we want them in face to face, this is the learning process that they are going through right now. And that is because we voted to make it that way.
Oh, you guys wanted to make it that way.
Oh, okay. Yeah, well, some of us voted that way to make it that way. Exactly. So that's where we are. So I appreciate everybody's decision, their comments, and the whole work. So we can continue to go around this, round and around, and we're just going to, we can take a poll to see if we need to give Dr. Selico the marching orders to move forward, or we're going to not have them to participate on the January the 4th as practice, and then putting all the protocols in place that's needed. So, any other comments before we just maybe take a straw vote or a poll just to see where things are?
I have to agree with you, Phil. There's one thing that Rob said. They may not be in school, but they are going to school. And that's true. It hasn't really, it kind of helped solidify my opinion on it. Although I agree with Mrs. Boynton, at the same time, I would like to have an idea, if we're going to, for right now, as we stand here today on December 30th, we have a target date of whatever it is, the 26th or the 1st or whatever, to go back to person-to-person classes. Could we go ahead and start practice on the 4th? I mean, if we've got a commitment from us and everybody else that we're going to go back to school on the 26th or the 1st or whatever, would we be able to, would the board support going back to practice and under those conditions or those terms? I guess that's where I'm standing.
Okay, all right. Well, let's go ahead and do the, okay, Mr. Tench, you made you said you're fine with going back on the 4th.
If with the understanding that we are starting school up on the 26th or the February 1st or whatever we decide when the kids are allowed back into the classrooms, I don't see why we don't allow them to start practice now. And here's the thing: if we don't let them back into the classrooms, we could stop it. I mean, if something happens and it starts to peak again, it's not in our best interest to let them back into the class. We'll have another decision to make. I hope that doesn't happen.
Yeah, if I can just say one thing, just to take into consideration, board, is that, and some of you already know this, but the scheduling for Mark and, competitions, he can't spring this on to them, last minute that we're going to start, we're going to stop, we're going to start. I understand that everything might be halted at any time,
right.
But, if we can give some solid dates, I'm sure that's helpful to Mark in terms of scheduling and competitions. So just something to consider.
Thank you.
Okay. All right, we know where you stand, Mr. Tench. Okay. Ms. Patterson, where you stand?
No school, no sports.
Okay.
If we're going back on January the 24th, 26th, whatever, then they can practice. But I need to know, when is the optimum date for us to return to school?
Okay. Mr. Kennedy, where you stand?
I'm in agreement with Dr. Selico.
Ms. Boynton?
I am not in agreement with Dr. Selico. Unless our children are coming back face to face. I agree with Mr. Tench. If we can get a date where they come back, then we can. If not, I do not support this recommendation at this time. As a board, that we would support her recommendation. She, like Ms. Patterson said, she made a recommendation for a return to school. As a board, if we're not in agreement with them returning on either February 28th or whatever day it is, or February 1st, Thursday, or that Monday, I will not support this recommendation.
Well, the 28th, is that the end of the quarter, Miss Dr. Selico?
Yes, 27th. Yeah.
Okay, so we had a target time during the end of the first quarter, and that target time, I forget when it was, but at that time things were pretty, peaked, and we decided not to. The majority of the board decided not to bring them back, and we decided to keep them out for longer. So if the 28th or that Monday is that targeted time to bring them back, after we still evaluate where things are regarding if it's, the peak of things, then that is the targeted date, correct, Dr. Selico?
Yes.
Okay.
It's peaking every day. Every day it's peaking. We had 340,000 people dying from COVID. And now we have a new strain in the United States. So we're peaking every day.
And we're peaking and we're looking at the other districts that are having sports, but we're not looking at the other district when it comes to bringing the kids back, even during the peak. So anyway, I gave mine. I'm sorry, Mrs. Stevens.
That's okay. That's all right. That's okay.
Sorry about that.
That's all right. That's all right. Well, and at this time, for my recommendation, I'm going to hold out on the recommendation as well, and I'm not going to. I feel that they need to be in as well.
So now, Dr. Selico, you're asking us to let the kids practice.
Yes.
Is that all you want us to do?
My recommendation would be that they start practicing on the 4th and then start participating on the 18th. I did a little research on, just asking around about, how far into the season. If we take Mr. Tench's suggestion of, starting to compete on February 1st or whatever, I don't think there's much of a season left. Enough time to practice and get ready. If they didn't have any preparation, they wouldn't have much of a season left in some of the sports. So,
You know what, Dr. Selico, as much as I am torn, I am very much torn. I am very much torn of this. You just don't know. But what I'm going to do, and I know I just said, I'm going to go on based on what they are in the learning position. They are in the learning position. And I'm going to change my tune with that. I want them to come in, but the 18th is a problem. Now you're saying competing on the 18th. Is that what you're saying?
Well, I chose that date just so you don't think it's random. I chose it in the sense that it's after the holiday, and it's also recommended by the Cuyahoga County. They use the latest we heard from the Board of Health was the 15th, for the spread, to let go for the holiday, 14 days. So the 18th, not that it's any safe number, but it's over the hump, according to them, with the holiday spike.
Well,
So-
my thing is just practicing. I don't know about competition. I don't know about competing other schools at this stage, in my eyes. Now, that's bringing everybody else in, doing different things, and you got fans and stuff. I'm concerned about that. Practice. What are you saying, Ms. Patterson?
I don't think we are permitted to have fans.
Well, so yeah, my recommendation, I apologize. I probably should have said this up front, and I know I said it before, but I don't know if it's been a while. So I would recommend, and my compromise with Mr. Zofka in our conversation, and what I would recommend is that there would be no fans and that we would live stream the games. So there would be no extra people in the gymnasium at all. And we have the capabilities, we have the new equipment to live stream all of the games.
Now they are doing that now. Some schools are doing live streaming, and they are being able to see the games live streaming. Yeah, and I can see that's happening. Okay, yeah, because I've seen those things in place as well. So,
Phil, if I may, to just like you mentioned, to start practice with the understanding, like Mrs. Patterson said, that they are attending class, that their grades are up, and we can decide on the competition. If see how that plays out. Get them back on the practice mats and then the practice courts first, and see how that goes for the next week or two, and then go from there.
well, I tell you, the one that really scares me more than anything
It's wrestling.
is wrestling.
Oh, absolutely.
How can you? I mean, that just floors me.
I get it. I agree. I don't get it. I wrestled. I don't know how you're going to get away with that, but
That's where I'm at right now, Dr. Selico. As much as I don't want, and I tell you, I don't want, but I have the heart and say, hey, our kids are at that stage. They are, once again. Hopefully that the comment that Mark said wasn't true regarding our kids not based on not participating. I hope that's not the case. I know athletics is a motivating factor for everyone. Those who participate and those who are athletes. That's where I'm at. That's where I'm at. Ms. Patterson, you're fixing your lips to say something. Go ahead.
My lips are fixed to say it. I'm looking at my sheet here. Practice on the 4th. Practice to start on the 4th, which is next week. And if we allow them to practice, we can see what's going on, and then they will. You're saying that they will start competition on the 18th, Dr. Selico?
That was just a recommendation, but again, I think we can reevaluate. We can start practicing that. Again, Mark will need to know some advance notice to let these teams, other districts, or I'm sorry, teams in our league know.
Mr. Zafka, have you scheduled any competitions before January the 18th?
Mrs. Harrison, our schedule has been completed for over a year, so yes. So what we're doing is we're going along right now. Like I've canceled the first week of January, so from the 4th to the 11th. Those games are being canceled. So I'm kind of moving along as we're going, just waiting on the recommendations from the board. But yes, I mean our schedule is completely scheduled. The biggest problem is if we make a decision to start the 18th and we try to tell a school, hey, give me to the 15th to let you know, because that's when our decision is going to be made. They're going to be like, listen, I got 4 or 5 other schools that want to play. We want to give our kids games. And so then what's going to happen is and that's where I'm facing right now, because I'm already getting, hey, Maple Heights contacted me 2 weeks ago. Hey, are we able to play? And I can't remember the date, January 8th, let's say. And he goes, I already have a game. And I said, go ahead and schedule it. Because I don't want to hold them back from them participating in their games. But that's the biggest issue I would have.
All right, I'll go along with the practice, and then we can reevaluate.
Yeah. And that's
Phil,
that's what I was going to do and say, we just go ahead. We'll just go ahead and do just that. Move forward, Dr. Selico, with January the 4th. We go in and reevaluate those things as we move forward.
Can I ask I don't want to throw a monkey wrench into this whole conversation because we've been on it long enough. What does this mean?
Then don't say nothing, Tim. Go ahead.
What does this do? I appreciate your support. What does this do to the other extracurriculars like band, jazz band, choir, and stuff like that? Are we prepared to face that onslaught from parents? If they, why can't they practice?
Well, it's a good question. And we haven't heard, I don't know that band is really organized at this time anyway, but I will tell you this. I have had teachers reach out to me, and myself included, with Soups Troops, for example, that, we want to take these students places, we want to do things with them. And I have put teachers on hold. I've not approved some of we've allowed some little things, but there is some consideration to be taken. And if I have the board's approval, I can look at those on a case-by-case basis to ensure the safety, is being followed.
I think if you would just bring a request before us and we do it on a case-by-case, I guess. That's my own, instead of, I don't know. I just brought that up because I know band isn't a big deal right now because the football season's over, but you got spring choir practice. You've got the musical, you've got all these things that come up in the spring and late spring that, that's just as important. The musical and the drama club is just as important to these students as wrestling and basketball is to the other ones. So we need to make sure that they're being attended to as well. That's all.
I will look into that, and I'll provide the board with an update and some reports and recommendations as we move forward.
Thank you.
Okay. So right now, Mr. Zapka, I don't know what where we are right now regarding the remaining of your schedules right now and what you have in place, but as you can hear what's being said right now, we're going to move forward with you guys with the majority of the votes of the board, that we're going to move forward to January the 4th for the first the practice time, and that's it. But please make sure you have those protocols in place so that we can make sure those things are. Even matter of fact, I would even say that whatever contract you had with the parents, to make those the signatures that was signed by parents to, you know, because I think there was something that was in place, wasn't it, for the fall season?
Yes, we had the waiver in place. And
Excuse
those
me?
have already been signed because remember, we had the waiver in place. We had a
Yeah.
waiver. Yes, that was signed by the parents, and yes, we've already done that. So all the winter athletes have already completed those. They've already completed the waiver, which included our protocols. So that has been done already. Because we were before we suspended sports, we had tryouts already. So right now it's just a matter of bringing those kids back into the fold. And just to add to that, you know, Helen, our trainer from UH, is, you know, with the protocol she oversees, especially now being in this one location, being in the gym, she will definitely make sure that those coaches and everybody is adhering to everything. She's a stickler for that. So we're in good hands with Helen, our trainer.
All righty. Okay. Anything else before we, anything else regarding bringing winter sports back in? Any other comments or concerns or anything that we can address while we're here?
Happy New Year. Stay safe.
Yeah, same to everybody. I appreciate the sincerity and the sensitivity of this whole subject, because I know it was hard for all of us, and definitely hard for me, and I know it was hard for the rest of you. So this is where we are. This was what makes our board, all boards, unique, because of the different opinions that we all have. So I want to thank you guys. Dr. Steliker, anything else that you may have before we adjourn?
No, thank you. And as Mr. Kenny said, thank you. I appreciate the difficulty in the decision and respect all of your opinions as well. And thank you and Happy New Year. And stay safe. Thank you.
Happy
Okay.
New Year, everybody.
Happy
Stay
New Year.
safe.
Okay, before we go, we need to adjourn now.
Oh.
Come on now.
Thank you, everybody. I appreciate your consideration. Thank
Bill
you.
left.
What's that?
Bill left.
No,
No,
Bill.
I'm right here.
Yes, sir.
Okay.
What did Mr. Zopka say? He was saying something.
He's muted.
Mrs. Optica, thank you to the board for everything. I appreciate it.
Oh,
Well,
okay.
Thank you. Thank you. Okay, can I get a motion to adjourn, please?
So moved.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion by Mr. Tench, second by Mr. Kennedy to adjourn. Please call the roll.
Mr. Tench,
Aye.
Mr. Kennedy,
Aye.
Mrs. Boynton,
Aye.
Mrs. Patterson,
Aye.
and Mr. Stevens.
Aye. Okay, we're adjourning at 6:32. Thank you very much, and you have a happy New Year's.
Same to you guys.
Happy New Year,
everyone.
everybody.
Stay safe.
Stay safe.